Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in another episode. Hi, Saeed. Hi, Vero.
Hi.
Hi, Jimena. I'm Saeed.
Well,
Hi,
Saeed,
everyone. Nice to meet you all.
yeah, nice to meet you too. Well, thank you so much for taking your time during your holidays. That's why you're looking casual, but perfect for a chilly, cozy conversation with us. Thank you so much, Saeed, for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Jimena and Veronica. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. Finally, we managed to find some time to do this,
Exactly.
and I'm so much looking forward to a nice conversation with you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saeed. Saeed, definitely your story, your journey is one that we were curious to know more about, more details to deep dive, going through all your journey. For those one who doesn't know, Saeed, he's originally from Iran. He moved to Switzerland to do a PhD in bioinformatics in Basel. And then you did a postdoc in the EPFL University in Lausanne. So now you're working for a big company, and even though you have your own company, your agency on artificial intelligence, which obviously we want to know more about that. But definitely we were curious as well how an immigrant from Iran is doing his life so well established with his family and everything. And obviously we want to know also the pros and the cons of your journey, because definitely it's not easy. Life in Switzerland sometimes can sound like a very, very cheap, everything pricey. Everyone is wearing a Rolex and a beautiful car. But there are so many things behind of that. And obviously coming from another region, it's adds more challenges. So thanks again.
Sure. Yes.
Nice. Let's go.
Thank you, Jimena, for the introduction. Saeed, let's start at the beginning. How did growing up in Iran shape your curiosity for computer science and algorithms?
Yeah. Well, I don't know like how everything kind of led to me becoming a computer scientist later in life. I had definitely a very colorful childhood. Probably we were one of those last generation of children who were playing outside on a street throughout the whole summer, day and night and every day, enjoying to be outside. But that kind of didn't limit me from playing video games. So I early 90s, we were playing with early versions of video game consoles, Atari, Nintendo, and Sega, and then later PlayStation. I was always curious, like how these games are made, and I wanted to be one day like part of this to build my own game. Maybe that was always like my imagination. A dream that I haven't achieved yet, but probably one day. And I think everything kind of became more obvious for me that I really love learning more about computers when my cousins had a PC and bought this video game, EA Sports FIFA 98, back in 97. So I was 12-year-old. I'm born in 85, and playing this game really like was a kind of some sort of a dream comes true. Like the players are 3D for the first time, and it's so realistic. Even though maybe if you look at that game today, you might feel like this is very childish or very basic, but at the time it was revolutionary. And so that was my first kind of official interaction with computers, and we couldn't just stop playing this game. Our parents were not very satisfied or happy about this, as you can imagine. Yeah, as you can imagine, it was always like we had to go hide in the room at night, turn off the volume, and put the blanket over our head in front of these massive monitors and play the game quietly without like pressing very hard the keyboard, which was very challenging. But we really enjoyed this game. And then later, a few years later, we had a course at the school teaching us programming, and the language was QBasic, very basic kind of language from I think 60s. And so there are few moments in life that you have this revelation, some sort of the doors of the sky or heaven opens to you. And when I learned QBasic and the teacher gave us a kind of a assignment, because he wanted to do his own things. And so he gave us a challenging assignment.
That was in a school?
Which
High school?
in
Or?
a school, yes, in a school. So he was busy with his own stuff, and so he taught us a concept of for loops, very basic concepts, and then he gave us an assignment that required using a embedded or kind of inner two for loops combined together, basically. And he didn't teach us that, so he kind of gave us this assignment to like for us to spend 1 hour time, and then I could solve it in a few minutes. When I solved it, it was like again that feeling that I want to do this for the rest of my life somehow. Like so, I
Like
went
it gave you
home.
some motivation, no, to do it so fast. Or
A lot, yeah. It was really like the doors of heaven, as I said. Like it was such a revealing moment, and I could see my future at that very moment, and I felt empowered in some ways to create something out of nothing, program the computer to do the task, even though it was a very basic task. It just showed me the power of this thing that is called programming. And so, yeah, I started learning many different programming languages, like very avid learner at that time. I was reading books throughout the whole weekend, going through one kind of volume of book for this programming language or that one. So in the next few years, I learned many different languages. I played with so many different concepts. I even kind of designed some basic form of games on Microsoft DOS, those kind of black or blue screen that you used to have. Even in high school, my teacher was giving me university level computer science books about operating systems or compilers. And even though it was very challenging for me to understand them, I think like I could kind of, they left a shadow in my mind. When I went to university to study computer science, I was kind of feeling these things I saw, like a deja vu. And so I had an easier time to learn even more advanced concepts. I continued until my master in computer science, and I studied algorithms and theoretical computer science. Somehow at this moment, I lost a bit of my practical skills because I was getting too theoretical. And at that point, I was very interested then in science and understanding the meaning of life. So when you're 23 or 4, you have a lot of questions, and you're young, and you feel like yes, you have a chance to take a shot at this and understand the meaning of life. Something that your parents didn't understand probably. So that's why I studied bioinformatics. Maybe you have questions about that, so we can get back to this. But so that was like how my passion and love for computers and programming were shaped as a child.
interesting.
And currently, Said, you are located in Zurich, right?
Yes.
Motivated you to move to Switzerland? Maybe it was not the way. And dedicate yourself to such a demanding PhD in bioinformatics. How was your motivation?
Sure. I mean, it was not such a demanding PhD. I finished it in 4 years, and it was.
4 years.
Wow.
It's a lot. Well, it's typical in Switzerland. It's 4 years. In the US, it's 5 years. In UK, it's 3 years.
Wow.
But it's very common. People go overtime in the PhDs, and so I, starting with this, so during early 2000s, there were a lot of buzz around human genome. And there was a first project, basically the first draft of human genome was finished, and the cover of the Nature magazine was about that. It was somehow our kind of Apollo moment in our generation. So not going on the moon, but understanding, going in the cells and understanding human genome. And so it was opening a ton of doors in terms of applications in medicine, understanding meaning of life, a lot of these things. And so I wanted to really get involved. So I did my project in my master on bioinformatics, learning about genetics, genomics, but algorithmic from a computer science perspective. And there were many applications because there were a lot of data was generated at that time, and even more today, that demanded computer scientists and quantitative, basically, people to get involved in this. Switzerland is known to be one of the centers for biological and pharmaceutical research, especially Basel, that is kind of an epicenter of biotech and pharma. And it was another practical kind of thing, was this closer, more proximity to home, to Iran, for me was more useful, so less time zone difference and easier to travel between. And I was offered a full scholarship in Basel based on the papers that I published in my master, so it was easy for me to secure a full scholarship. I came to Basel, and later maybe we get more into these stories. But so I studied bioinformatics. It was a great environment to learn. In Basel, we have a few Nobel laureates, and within the university that I study, which is called Biocentrum, the Center of Bio, is a kind of very high credible, well-known center for excellent biological research. The advisory board were all the famous scientists in the world. So I had a chance to even meet these people and have lunch with them even at some point as a representative of PhD students. So it was great opportunity to learn and to be really at the edge of science at that point. And later I moved to Lausanne to do a postdoc at EPFL, another great institution in Switzerland for high-level research and science and engineering. I loved Lausanne partly because of a university being a well-known university, even though I had an offer from ETH in Basel. There's an ETH Zurich branch in Basel, that's biotech thing. But I wanted to live in Lausanne, partly because it's a beautiful place. It's amazing, the beauty of this place. And I want to also experience the Swiss-French side. So not just Swiss-German, and see Switzerland from their perspective, which is kind of funny. It feels like two different countries when you live in two different places. Still, there's like, it's clean, it's beautiful, it's like ordered, well organized, maybe less organized than Swiss German part. And it's not in a bad way. It's a little bit more open to randomness and beauty things that can happen in life. So maybe not in a bad way. It's a nice place. I felt like home in Lausanne. I lived 7 years, where I became also a Swiss citizen. And so that's my origin, basically, in Switzerland. And now with my family, we live in Zurich for the last 4 years.
Yeah. What were the hardest challenges, Saeed, during your PhD, not only from a technical point of view, if not more personally, as an immigrant student?
Well, during PhD, I didn't know anyone, so I moved to Basel like by myself with a luggage, a guitar, because I play guitar, so I brought my guitar, and a rice cooker that my aunt gave me, and I never cooked before that. 2,000 francs with me, so that was all I had. And when I started in Basel, I didn't know anyone, I didn't know anything, and I learned a bit of German. But I moved to Basel realizing they don't speak German. There's a different kind of difference between what you learn in a school and what they speak in Switzerland. And so navigating the rules and laws of everyday life, it was both fun and challenging because you learn and you make the difference between where you come from, and then you say, oh, okay, there's a reason for that, interesting, or oh yeah, this is maybe too much now. They're kind of, and it's very often the case in Switzerland, you find a little too much of the strict rules, and then making friends from scratch, like getting to know people and growing your network. They become your family, your friends, your everyone, your everything. Like, and So that was, again, maybe not such a big challenge. But if you ask me, what is the biggest challenge for as an immigrant, in my opinion, is acquiring work permit and visa for Switzerland as an immigrant, especially as a non-European. If you're a non-European and you want to stay in Switzerland to work or study further, you need to get work permit, and that's the hardest one. So once you finish your education, you need to apply for a work permit, and that's very difficult for non-Europeans to get that. And so that was the biggest challenge for me.
I think that a lot of work paper.
Yes, there's a lot of kind of required papers and evidence that the company needs to provide if they hire you as a non-European. For example, they have to show there's no Swiss person that is interested in this job and has the same qualification. And then further, there's no European person, like somebody maybe in Portugal or Germany could be interested in this job. So you are kind of the last one in this order. And for small companies or medium-sized companies, they don't have the resources, the lawyers, the money, and the time to do that. So they prefer to go with the Swiss or European options. That further limits the options. So we have to go for apply for larger companies. And within larger companies, I was thinking also another thing, when you do a PhD or postdoc, you're kind of, even though it's a very high profile, I don't know, high education, but it also overqualifies you for many jobs. And so that further limits. So this challenge of, so what next? What happens after my studies finish? What job, if I want to stay? It's a big challenge, I think.
Yeah. So a part of this challenge, you had the opportunity to work in some projects, interesting projects. One of them, it was at SOPHiA Genetics, where you create one of the most accurate cancer diagnosis algorithms in the industry, maybe thousands of lines, I have to say. How did that experience impact? How was the impact in as a professional, well, as a person, for sure?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question, Veronica. And back in 2016, when I joined SOPHiA Genetics in Lausanne, was still in a startup phase, in the growth phase, I would say. Not the smallest startup. We were already 70 people when I joined. And later, when I left, we were around 450. And later, it became also a public company. And that was a great honor to work there and learn and apply my skills, what I learned in postdoc and PhD, for not just research, but more applied clinical applications for cancer diagnostic. Personally, cancer or working on this field for me was very important. I lost my father when I was 19 he had cancer. When he was diagnosed when I was 17, and 2 years later he passed away. And for me, I felt very closely how the families, how the person go through this process is very challenging for everyone, the whole family. And so if I could do anything, even a small thing to improve a little bit this thing, so for me it was a kind of a personal revenge to cancer or something like my smallest contribution that I could do. And yes, I was assigned to work on some of the new projects that SOPHiA was exploring back then using RNA sequencing and gene fusion detection. So I pioneered these techniques at the company. We designed some of the best-in-class diagnostic algorithms, machine learning based on machine learning and kind of bioinformatics algorithms that had at the time had the highest sensitivity for detecting cancer. So doctors all over the world, worldwide, were using this test to precisely understand what type of cancer the person has and what is the right way of prognostic, what is the best treatment that maximizes the chance of maximizes the chance of survival. And so I had this honor to contribute in some ways. And through this process, I learned a lot because being in a smaller company at that time, you had to be responsible for the entire product end to end, from research to development, or even joining sales calls and customer service and follow-ups and all these things. So I learned a lot, and that was great.
So, Saeed, also you were mentioning the fact that you were very connected. Your father passed away due to cancer, and then it was like a revenge for you. But nevertheless, you were still not doing what was your passion, which was gaming. So I guess when this opportunity came from Electronic Arts company, you wanted to jump in, no,
Yeah.
in this opportunity. So how, if you can tell us, how was this shift that you made from healthcare and something that you were so connected emotionally, mostly to the gaming industry, the Electronic Arts?
Yes, I had the shift from basically healthcare to entertainment industry, very different mindset, very different setting. Back in 2020, where I was searching for potential jobs that I could apply my skills to address business problems or business questions, not just on the R&D side, right? Product development, but like driving business decision making or applying data science and analytics to do something about business. So that was the time that I was given a chance at EA, based in Geneva, to join the company as a senior data scientist in marketing. So it was amazing. A lot of things changed. There was no discussion around compliance and regulatory or all this kind of thing, FDA and CIVD, but it was more about entertainment, the joy, the passion, kind of appearance of the colleagues completely changed. So we have like people who work in video game industry are very laid back, very relaxed, very expressive in their appearance and behaviors and the way they do conversation, because they're all there doing what they're passionate about and they want to kind of bring that at work too. So that's the work culture that we have. While if you are maybe in the pharma industry, or biotech industry that is working on clinical, it's more kind of, there's more order, there's more discipline. And so that was huge change, like going all of a sudden from discussing like what cancer type or tumor type to what video game or FIFA or FC or Battlefield, what kind of shooter game or a sport game. And, so it's a huge change.
Of course.
Yeah. Even though I have to say I applied the same skills and same knowledge I had to different numbers, right? So the numbers were different, but the underlying methods and methodologies remain the same.
And the end user, of course, is different.
And the user is different. So another way I see it, moving from healthcare, cancer to oncology or cancer diagnostics to entertainment, is instead of focusing on the last 1 or 2% of life, focus on the first 98% of life, 99% of life. So that was something like the way I see it. And as I said, when I was 10, 12-year-old, I was enjoying playing EA games. So vividly remembered that. And then when they offered me the job, I couldn't just say no. So that was like, sure, yes. We really wanted to, because my wife is from Swiss German area. She was interested that we move back to her area. So I was looking for jobs in Basel back then, but this job was in Geneva, and I kind of made the deal with her. If I get this job, we remain here. So that's the job I always wanted to do. And so if they offer me, there's no question I'm going to take it. And so we did that. Later in COVID, when the COVID started, we kind of went more into remote work, and that's why we moved to Zurich. So, yeah.
And Saeed, as an immigrant and a team leader at Electronic Arts, how do you build the trust and credibility in such a global and multicultural environment as in this company?
Yes. Well, the immigrant part, the culture of EA is very multicultural. Yes. So we have offices all over the world, and there are people from all type of nationalities working at EA. And so in that respect, it's not an issue. But as a team leader, and so I kind of grew at EA from individual contributor to a manager position. And so went from being a good at data science myself to become a good coach or good leader for others to, or provide them the a space to grow. And what I think like is the most important are type of soft skills and such as communication, such as patience, such as or also emotional intelligence. So these are things that you often never learn at a school, right? So in you do a PhD or postdoc or anything, you don't learn about value of EQ, emotional intelligence. You don't get the value of storytelling, communication, being clear and clarify things, and creating psychological safety for your team to express themselves.
The empathy.
At EA, yeah. At EA, they give us regularly like courses and trainings for this, but I'm also personally very much interested in this and something maybe I never talked about. So as a kid and all my life, I've been playing football, and that gave me a sort of a good social skill to engage with people, to
Team
be at the
spirit.
kind of, yeah, doing a team sport, being part of a team and know your value or your position within the team and how to engage with any different type of people from different backgrounds. And so those communication and soft skills that I mentioned are so important. And that's something that we later in life we discover this. We later, after 30 or 40, we discover the value of these things and invest more in learning those skills. I see excellent engineers, excellent scientists, very good at their work, but very much missing or lacking behind in terms of clear communication. And so that restricts their growth and progress. So these are, I think, the most important. And that's how I created trust in the company. And it didn't come honestly like day one. I had to work very hard on this. And at least the good news is something that you learn. It's not like you're born with clear communication. It's something you need to invest time. And it's like a sport. You have to train, you have to learn, and you see the value of this when you're kind of investing more time in this.
Let's continue talking about talent. After some years studying and working in corporate roles, so you decide to found ELIYA. What pushed you to take the leap into this new startup?
Yeah, they're still wondering why. But no, there are certain reasons for this. So my family, I'm coming from a family of entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. He started his own business with nothing, and so he was quite successful in his job and in the business that we created. My brothers are all self-employed, and so that somehow is in my blood too. I wanted to have my own company, but another reason, and it's more like a, how to say, like a contrarian view that I have to this is, so a lot of people do MBA, and I'm not saying MBA is a bad thing, and it's a well-structured program, and definitely very costly, no? So it costs at least 50, 60,000 or even much more, depending on which school or institute you go. And so for me was, I want to do MBA, but instead of, I'm not looking for another certification or title to add to my titles. So I want to do MBA instead of like spending that money, 50, 60, 70,000 on an MBA program. I invested in a business and I start like facing the real business challenges myself and see like if I can build a business from scratch. So that's why.
Good.
Very smart side. And what is the mission behind ELIYA?
Not sure. ELIYA, when ELIYA started back in 2021 or late 21, it used to be, the idea of ELIYA was as an expat or as an immigrant living in different cities in Switzerland, in different places, I always face the challenge of furniture, like, oh, how should I get the furniture when I'm moving to a new place? And so I thought that's a good idea to offer some sort of a subscription service for furniture and build a circular economy for home furniture. So it's more sustainable way of consuming furniture, and it makes it easier for immigrants and foreigners to very quickly kind of get the furniture they want, and then when they're finished with it, they just return it like a Netflix sort of subscription that you can cancel anytime and then you're free to go. So that was a concept that we tried alongside a couple of other companies here in Switzerland. It was started back in 2019 in the US, and that was very successful. So we thought we have a shot at this. And none of the companies were successful, unfortunately. So some of these startups, one of them actually went to Y Combinator and had fundings and investors, but wasn't successful to close it. Because I think culturally, people in Europe and Switzerland are not interested in kind of reusing the same furniture, the same sofa come to your place that was somewhere else. So they wanted to have new. Unfortunately, this is unfortunate because that leads to a lot of garbage and a lot of environmental footprint. We pivot after a year or two to the current concept of ELIYA, which is closer to my background and my heart. So we are building. ELIYA offers solutions and machine learning solutions for specifically for marketing that helping companies to better measure their marketing activities, the impact of their marketing, every dollar that they're spending in their marketing, what's the value that it creates for their company, and B, using AI and modern sort of Gen AIs for content generations, for automation, building workflows, combining these two, basically like AI content generation and campaign sort of creatives combined with measurement solutions that sort of help the companies to have like a full sort of end-to-end automation and measurement and data-driven decision making for their marketing activities. Yeah.
A founder, what has been your biggest challenge? For example, looking for new clients, building the right team, or just the balancing between the risk, stability, family?
Yeah. As a solopreneur, it's very difficult because I'm responsible for everything. I'm responsible from operations, hiring, advertisement, marketing, social media, building the products, everything, finance. So again, that was the idea. That was a goal for me to learn all these aspects of doing business. And so I get exposure to every type of challenges, and I definitely learn a lot through this process, but that's very challenging. And finding clients as a kind of a technical person, I never felt like how difficult and challenging could be the job of sales. And so now I have more appreciation for what they are doing and bringing a client on the board, right? So when I was in SOPHiA GENETICS, for example, we were complaining about our sales team, even though we had an excellent sales team, that why they are bringing so many projects, because we are all underwater, overwhelmed with too many projects. Now I wish I had that level of kind of sales that brings so much kind of projects that the technical team being overwhelmed like that. And so now I appreciate their work more. So getting clients and it's not easy if you have limited resources, and something maybe also relates to culture in Switzerland that maybe I can get back to it later, but it's also not easy for a non-Swiss person, not being able to speak Swiss German, to be able to kind of penetrate in this market. And so that was a big challenge for me. Otherwise, I enjoyed the learning. I enjoyed throughout this process, all the learning, all the challenges. I was ready for the worst of experiences. Didn't happen. Thanks God, didn't happen. Those worst experiences I was expecting for. Yes, I spent a lot of time, a lot of endless thinking and strategizing and pivoting directions to find the right kind of product and product market fit. And but through this process, I get a lot of learning, and that was the whole goal, right?
Well, I think that just to be a self-employee, this is a big challenge.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the country for sure. But, keeping in mind that you are in Switzerland, which is the easiest and the hardest part in Switzerland?
Yeah. So one thing is, so my company at ELIYA, I'm bootstrapping the company. So I haven't so far raised any money. I invested my own money, and now we are in a phase that the company generates enough money that I can invest back. And so slowly I can see the signs that it's picking up, and I'm glad because I'm kind of out of that mode of not making any money, but now it's getting definitely started, and it's good. But bootstrapping in Switzerland, everywhere is difficult. I can't say yes, for example, bootstrapping in the US could be easy, but everywhere is difficult. It's very challenging. But more specifically in Switzerland, it's more difficult. Life is so expensive in Switzerland that if you don't have any other job to sustain yourself while you're bootstrapping, it's impossible to live unless you have your parents' house and they give you food and you don't have any bills. It's not the case for me. I have to pay rent and family, support my family. And so life is expensive in Switzerland, as everybody knows. It's one of the most expensive countries. You need at least a few thousand, 4,000 or 5,000 every month, at least, to sustain a minimum lifestyle. And if you have a family, even more. So imagine how you want to like build on a startup here that all of a sudden start making at least 7-10K a month, so you can have your life and you pay your employees and you pay also other bills and invoices related to the business. So you need at least 10,000. While competing with other companies, especially if you're in IT and AI space, that you're competing with other companies within Europe or in India or other places in the world, that they have much cheaper operational costs. So the operation cost is so expensive. The life is very expensive in Switzerland. That makes bootstrapping near impossible, very difficult. So that's one. I'm not saying it's impossible, so near impossible. There are for sure exceptional entrepreneurs who did that. And another thing in Switzerland, and that goes with the culture, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's the Swiss culture. We have to see that we have to study their culture from the perspective of their geography, their history, their society, that how it's formed, this country, how they created their own language somehow historically, like Swiss German, as a way to tag who is with us, who is not belong to here, who belongs to here, who doesn't. And it's a way of kind of protecting themselves from outside. And so that mindset somehow, I would say, remains in a different form. So if you are building a business, you are not from here, you look different. You don't speak fluent Swiss German. They have a harder time to trust you. And trust in Switzerland is everything. It's a country built on top of trust. And it takes some time to gain their trust, and you have to work very hard to have their trust. But once you do that and they trust you, things become much easier. And so that takes some time for entrepreneurs, foreigners to establish themselves here in Switzerland. If you're a Swiss person and you grew up in the same school and you went to the same job, you did the same job as some others, and now you start your own company, for you maybe to get a client, it requires a few phone calls. But if you're a non-Swiss, don't have this background, you need to first introduce yourself in an English language or a different language or broken German. So it takes time to do that. But on the bright side, what Switzerland offers is, especially if you're at universities like ETH and EPFL, there's excellent programs for entrepreneurship. They encourage that. They provide some facilities, coaching, resources for people to establish their companies here. Initial funding can be easy. And the ecosystem is sort of built for this type of entrepreneurship. The laws are transparent and clear, right? So it's to a certain level, it's digitalized, the whole system. Maybe there are some kind of a still non-digital thing, but things are fast and good and clean and transparent. These are the good parts of building a company in Sudan. Even though I didn't do any of this startup coaching or programs that exist here, like accelerators and stuff.
Said, so And moving from Iran, it was a huge cultural leap. That's for sure, right? And what are some of the biggest cultural shocks that you have experienced, both daily and the workplace? I mean, Saeed living in Zurich, what would you say?
Yeah, so probably the first thing comes in mind when you talk about differences or cultural differences in Switzerland versus probably any other place on earth is the idea of timing and being on time for different things. And so that's something that is highly valued in Switzerland. From early childhood, they ingrained in the brain of children that timing is very important, to be on point, on time. So that's a bit of a difference between where I come from. Like, even if you want to be on time, since there's so much traffic and so much uncertainty and unpredictable things can happen, you don't get to the place that you want to be at the right time always. That's not always guaranteed. But in Switzerland, you can be pretty sure that if you want to be at the place at that minute, you get there at that minute, even if you use public transport or any other form. So these things are super interesting to see. It's nice, but it also sometimes a little bit become draining for to be always exactly. You are constantly watching the time, time, like 1 minute. Like, for example, like if you are invited for a dinner in my country, and you show up at you will show up somewhere around 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's like a range. And it's annoying too. So especially now when I go back home and somebody shows up at lunch at 3 p.m. and say, hey, what's wrong with you? And in Switzerland, when I was first invited for dinner, it was 7. Like they say, at 7 we serve the dinner.
Yeah.
I was kind of still not ready, and my roommates that time said, hey, we need to be there. In Switzerland, he's Italian. It's not like our country. So it's like you have to be on time. It is bad if you get there late. But in Iran, for example, it's a sign of power or kind of a prestige to show up a bit later. So that's very different here. That would be interpreted as being a very low cultural person.
Yeah.
That's one. I mean, there's quite a few of these cultural shocks, of course. Another thing that I can see clearly difference between Swiss German, and it really depends where you live in Switzerland. As someone who had exposure to two different parts, Swiss French and Swiss German, one thing I find in Swiss German at work, if you're in Swiss German area, Basel or Zurich, people rarely engage in small talks at work. Even sometimes I was getting shocked that people coming in the morning, not even saying good morning, and leaving in the evening, not even saying bye or have a nice evening, nothing. Come in, work, lunch, we go for lunch, we have a conversation, and then leave like without even saying anything. In the Swiss French, Swiss Romandie, as we call it, it's more possible you engage in small talks.
More French style.
Yeah, like this thing, if you don't, they see it as a bad thing. So you need to do. And I felt more at home there, to be honest, there. And the morning, bonjour, or leaving in the evening, right? So that's again, it really depends where you stay in Switzerland. That culture is not really a unique, and that makes Switzerland very interesting. I personally didn't live in Ticino or Italian part. That could be also very different. And so it's a small country with many different types of cultures and ideas. Another kind of thing that I wish, for example, we could have this more in my country, in Iran, is that the Swiss also learn a lot in a school as a child to protect their nature. They don't throw garbage in the nature. They clean after themselves when they go for a picnic. They're really protecting their natural sort of monuments that exist in Switzerland, I would say. Yeah, so there's a lot of cultural differences, of course. The law, like if you're a foreigner and you're moving in, it's a high chance that you break something at some point, break a law without even knowing. You do something that you break the law, and it becomes a little bit stressful at some point that if I do this or if I say that, is this breaking the law? And then, so you get a bit of humiliation why the law is in Switzerland important. So a lot of people know that. So this condescending sometimes behavior you get here is a little bit of annoying for foreigners that they're not like breaking the law on purpose, but then they get a full lecture of why you don't know how the law should work and stuff. But it's very likely if you're not from here, you make simple mistakes like buying a wrong ticket or vacuuming your apartment on Sunday or right. So a lot of these mistakes could happen.
A lot of laws, known and unknown. Then also being an immigrant, working here and working for big companies and so on. For example, in the previous episode, we had Carlos who was saying, build your network before you need it. No? So what would be your suggestion as well, or your advice for students or not students, people who want to get a job here in Switzerland? What would be your advice?
Yeah, so I think this building the network is certainly a great advice. So I don't want to add to that. Carlos gave a very good advice. I would say turn the disadvantage into advantage. Meaning, if you are a bit different than people here in your appearance, which is the case for me, right? So I'm not typical Swiss person that you can imagine. So that is maybe at first is a bit of a self-awareness about that I'm different than others. But over time, it can become an advantage if you know how to use it. So it's my personal brand. There are people that they may even don't know me by name. Maybe they saw me once somewhere. But then they say, you know who I'm talking about? This guy Saeed. They say, no, I don't know. The Iranian Saeed. Oh yeah, the Iranian guy. The funny Iranian guy. Yes, I know. So this become your personal brand. So turning that sort of being different into being unique, right?
Yeah.
To be your personal brand, people recognize you, people remember you. If you know how to use this, that would be a great advantage.
It's so true. Yeah. Fully agree. Following up with the ELIYA job that you are doing, no, and also with AI. Let's talk about how you see AI today and tomorrow. No, you have been working across different industries like healthcare, gaming, and now in marketing and finance. So, well, in your view, what is the most exciting AI trends that you see shaping for the next years?
Yes, I see the AI not as kind of a unique moment that happened because of ChatGPT being released 3 years ago, but as a continuum over the past 50, 60 years of research and work and progress. So there's certainly a lot of AI happened before ChatGPT, so not everything is, or Gen AI. So my personal kind of preference to see how this modern or kind of new wave of AI is going to be shaped in the next few years. For sure, like there's a lot of conversation and talk about agents, AI agents. And so my personal take on agents is, so I want to like see more work combining agents and Gen AI with more classical machine learning and predictive modeling, because that's very powerful. Everything that you see, that a lot of progress that we have today is thanks to predictive modeling. If you do a good idea, if you have a good idea about what's the weather gonna be, weather forecast next day or in 2 days, it's thanks to predictive modeling. If in finance, in medicine, in every kind of field, you have applications of predictive modeling. And within marketing, for example, you can say like with a very good accuracy how much money you're spending or what's your marketing budget, what would lead in terms of acquisition or sales. So right now, still these two areas are kind of kept separate. There are still people doing predictive modeling or analytics, and then there are people doing generative AI and content generations or different form of sort of modality of data, which then leads to agents in form of automation, like doing certain tasks in an order or kind of reasoning what task to do next. What I'm excited mostly about to give agents the ability to call and use predictive models that so give the agent not just the ability to change its current state based on what is available today, but actually based on the predictions that it does for the future, take actions for that. So that would be, I think, the biggest and most exciting direction that I want to see. I call it predictive intelligence, combining these two fields into one kind of uniform field.
Nice. And for those ones who don't know exactly what agentic AI workflows, for example, there's something at ELIYA you're doing for your clients.
Yeah.
Can you explain what does it mean? Can you explain more graphically?
Yeah, so the idea of agent is definitely older than what we hear today, but it refers to any sort of autonomous behavior or agent that can do certain tasks without being asked to do it on your behalf. So it would be either scheduled or it kind of react to an event, then it does trigger some actions. And there are different types of agents. So the simplest one is that the ones that follow a fixed recipe of action. So here is do A, B, C, D, like fixed set of actions in a fixed order. Another one is like an agent that can change the behavior based on certain output that it sees. Like if something happened, instead of doing this thing, do that thing. So if you're going, for example, I don't know, if you go like shopping and there is tomato, buy tomato and make bolognese. But if there's no tomato, do something else, like buy bacon and make carbonara. So that's more kind of can change behavior based on the states. But then the more kind of exciting ones that people are interested is when the AI can do some sort of reasoning to generate this recipe on a spot. Instead of using a fixed recipe, it can generate that. What is it I'm gonna do? What is the best set of actions that for me to do? This is very still kind of work in progress, a still open question that if AI, at least the current technology, can have the resilience to kind of create this type of recipes at every type of task that you throw at them. There are certainly some use cases that shows that they're very powerful, but those are kind of, to me, a sort of cherry picking. They pick the best examples and show, but when you start using them in real life, you see that there are limitations still.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that they don't have the awareness, the word awareness, right? They can't understand the word that we understand. So that's why sometimes they can make things that may sound ridiculous. So that's a very autonomous agent that can generate recipes and procedures based on a kind of a bit of a vague request that it can combine, and then it comes with a list of actions that it's gonna do. It would have plan B and plan C if certain things happen. So these are very kind of robust agents. Most of the things that happens today in the industry is agents with fixed or a little bit of flexibility in terms of the actions and recipes that they're gonna follow, like invoice processing. So they know exactly what is it has to be done, and they've been tested hundreds or thousands of times for that certain task, and that agent is designed to do this task. So it's a kind of a small skill that a human could have. It does that very well.
Yeah. Thank you, Sai. I think it brings more clarity to people. Before we're closing, Saeed, before you leave us with a nice message.
Okay.
We do like a rapid, fast fire closing. So I'm gonna ask you some question and just concise. The first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Exciting. Okay.
So tell me, which favorite Iranian tradition do you keep in Switzerland still?
Nowruz, which is our New Year,
Okay.
is at the beginning of spring. The first day of spring is Persian New Year. We call it Nowruz.
Okay.
And Yalda, which is the longest night of the year. We call it the birth of the sun because from day after the sun gets longer. So we stay up the whole night, even though I can't
Wow, super
manage to
nice.
stay up the whole night. And we tell stories, read poetries, very,
Nice.
very beautiful culture. But I try to keep these two alive to some
Okay.
extent.
Okay. And food? Are you keeping any Iranian recipe?
Absolutely, yes,
Of course.
absolutely. Many of them.
Good. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird. Okay. With a baby, for sure you are early bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
A book or resource that influence you that make you think about AI?
A book. Well, the books that I read, some of the books that really left a mark in me, and are the books from Nicholas Nassim Taleb. So probably you heard the book called Black Swan.
Yes.
And finance, for example, is known. So Nassim Taleb's books are, for me, very interesting, very deep. He's a philosopher, deep thinker, and I read some of his books back to back many times. So Black Swan, Anti-Fragility, Fooled by Randomness, these are the books that I really enjoyed. Also, I'm very much interested in the idea of psychology and behavioral psychology. So the book called Thinking Fast and Slow, or Thinking Slow and Fast. I think Thinking Fast and Slow, from Daniel Kahneman, who won Nobel Prize some years ago. He passed away, unfortunately. So his book is so profound on how human can kind of perceive uncertainty and can make decisions in the face of uncertainty. So in general, like all the work that related to behavioral psychology, I love. Then, and in terms of leadership, I don't go through a classical leadership studies. I did read these books, very interesting, but I prefer more like less obvious books about leadership. So there is a book from Carlo Angelotti, is a football coach, called Quiet Leadership. And so I really enjoyed reading this book because he had to manage a football club under enormous stress and pressure. So that is very interesting. And the book from Anthony Bourdain, Kitchen Confidential, I enjoy his writings, the way he described the world, very honest, very transparent. And so I also enjoyed that book because this is also about managing a kitchen under pressure, under a stressful environment, and it shows like what's happening behind the scene when you go dine in a restaurant. And so that I also enjoyed. And so some of the best learning of leadership I got from this type of books than other than kind of classical leadership or managerial books.
I love Anthony Bourdain, way of writing. Super interesting. What is your favorite way to disconnect? Guess playing guitar, me?
Favorite way to disconnect? These days, going out for a walk with my dog. That's the best way to disconnect, yes.
Okay, nice. And what excites you more about the future of AI?
I think I'm more kind of on a pessimistic side, so not very excited side. So, well, there would be unprecedented wealth creation. We are at the point that there would be a ton of money to be created in the AI industry, but doesn't mean it comes at low cost, at no cost for society and people. So probably that's a bit what I'm kind of scared mostly about.
Are you talking about the environmental impact?
Many aspects, environmental, social impacts, the impact it has on creativity, human creativity. Like if you're imagining replacing creative art, cinema with AI algorithmic movies, or if our children in a school keep using it, what happens to the society? I don't know, but maybe a good thing happens, maybe, hopefully. But if they lose the ability to think originally and do the hard work of writing their own assignment, what could happen? And so this kind of thing are a bit scaring me, yes, or job replacements.
You got so emotional now, so human. How you like to close your episode, Sai? What will be your message?
Yes, I think going back to life, I would say my own life, a lot of things that we do in life, maybe at that moment, doesn't seem to be obvious or practical in the future. But then when you look back at your life, you can start connecting the dots. So from 10, 12-year-old, I was playing this video game, FIFA 98, moving to 20 something years later, I am part of that company and part of the publishing of that same game for the next generations of gamers. And a lot of things that I feel in life for me got connected. So somehow, if you're doing something today, do something that you're truly passionate about and you enjoy, maybe less pragmatic and less kind of binary in terms of cost and benefit, but something that your heart is on it. And then later in life, you will see that somehow the dots start connecting.
Sorry. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice way. Thank you so much, Said. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope you enjoy the
Thanks for
professional.
having me, Jimena and
No
Veronica.
problem.
Thanks so much.
Nice
It
to
was
meet
a
you,
great
Said.
conversation.
Thank you, Said.
Bye.